We're talking a Tesla Cybertruck, a Trump hotel, explosions, and there might even be connections to another attack.
Yeah, definitely a case where the facts are interesting, but the questions they bring up are even more intriguing.
Definitely. So we've got articles from CNN, Reuters, even a local Denver news source, Denver 7 Investigates, all to kind of help us navigate this whole thing.
There was an explosion of a car near the Trump hotel in the Las Vegas Strip area.
We see that on video right now.
According to our latest CBS News reporting, somebody in that car is dead. They don't know if it's a man or a woman. You see the scope and size of that explosion.
All right, so let's set the scene. New Year's Day, 2025, and right outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, a Tesla Cybertruck explodes.
And this isn't just like a small explosion. This truck was packed with like gasoline canisters, military-grade firework mortars, stuff that could cause a really big blast.
Wow, military-grade fireworks. That's a new one. Sadly, the driver, Matthew Livelsberger, an Army vet from Colorado Springs, he died in the explosion. 7 other people had minor injuries.
It's kind of interesting to think about how the Cybertruck's design might have actually helped contain the blast a bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this truck is built with a hardened steel exoskeleton and that armored glass. It's possible those features actually helped to direct the force of the explosion upwards, maybe minimize damage to the surrounding area.
So the truck that's built to be tough might have actually protected the hotel from worse damage. That's pretty wild. Okay, but here's where things get a little more complicated. Just hours before all of this, a pickup truck drives into a New Year's Eve celebration in New Orleans. This was in the French Quarter. This attack, which authorities have labeled as terrorism, ended up with 15 deaths and over 30 injuries.
Yeah, and the driver was shot and killed by police.
Right.
He was flying an ISIS flag.
Wow, so a lot. Yeah. How does the Cybertruck, how does that fit into this?
Well, the connection that kind of jumps out right away is that both the Cybertruck and that New Orleans truck were rented through Turo.
I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar with Turo.
Oh, it's basically it's like a platform where people can rent out their own cars. Think like Airbnb, but for cars.
Oh, okay. So that does bring up a big question. Is this just a crazy coincidence, or is there something more coordinated going on here?
Exactly. And to make it even more complicated, Denver 7 Investigates found out that Livelsberger and the New Orleans attacker, Shamsuddin Jabbar, were both stationed at the same Army base.
Hold on. So now it's feeling less like a coincidence and more like a possible conspiracy. Are we talking about a coordinated attack? Did one maybe inspire the other?
Well, it's worth looking into for sure. I mean, what kind of connection are investigators even looking for? Were they in the same unit? Did they ever, even talk to each other? Even small details could be really important in figuring out if there's a link between these two guys.
And this is where Elon Musk enters the picture. He's not just the CEO of Tesla, but he was also an advisor to President-elect Donald Trump at the time. And get this, he actually helped out with the investigation.
Oh, yeah. Musk gave the police footage of the Cybertruck that was taken by Tesla's network of charging stations. They have those all along the route from Colorado to Las Vegas. He even helped unlock the truck remotely. Apparently, the explosion triggered its auto lock feature.
That's some serious cooperation, especially in a case this big.
Yeah, definitely unusual.
So you've got the Cybertruck, a symbol of futuristic tech exploding outside of a Trump hotel, which is all about luxury and power. Then you throw in Elon Musk, the famous innovator, helping the investigation.
And don't forget the political climate at the time. This was just a few weeks before Trump's inauguration, and the country was really divided.
So you've got this tense situation, and then, boom, this explosion happens.
Yeah, it's almost like this event became a kind of a focal point for all the anxieties and divisions in the country.
Definitely. So let's circle back to Matthew Livelsberger, the guy who's driving the Cybertruck. What do we actually know about him?
Well, besides him being in the military and that connection to the New Orleans attacker, details about his life are still pretty mysterious. Investigative reporters from Denver 7 found out that he had multiple addresses in Colorado Springs. The FBI was actually searching one of them.
Okay.
But what they found, we don't know.
It sounds like there's a lot more to this story than we initially thought. What do you think is the most interesting part of this case so far?
For me, it's the timeline of the explosion in Vegas. The Cybertruck got there around 7:30 in the morning, but it didn't actually explode until almost an hour later, and get this, only 15 seconds after stopping in front of the hotel.
So what was he doing during that hour?
Right. Was it on purpose, or was it something he didn't plan?
And what about choosing the Trump Hotel, of all places? Was that symbolic? Was it to send a message? Or was it just because it was there?
Those are the questions investigators will have to figure out as they try to understand why Lebelsberger did what he did, and if it's connected to that attack in New Orleans.
This deep dive is already so full of twists and turns, and we've only just started. What are you guys thinking so far? What questions do you have? Keep those in mind as we go even deeper into this complex and captivating case.
So, welcome back to our deep dive into this Cybertruck explosion. It feels like every detail we find just makes this case even more complicated.
Yeah, it's like peeling back layers of an onion. Every layer has something new and unexpected. We were just talking about what Lebelsberger was doing in that hour before the explosion.
Yeah, that hour is it's a key piece. Investigators are going to be looking at everything. Footage from traffic cameras, security cameras. They'll even talk to people who were there and try to piece together everything he did.
Oh, and what about his digital trail? You know, nowadays, everyone leaves a trace online. I'm sure the FBI is going through his phone records, emails, websites he visited, anything to understand what he was thinking and why he might have done this.
Definitely. What he did online could tell us a lot. Was he looking up the Trump Hotel? Was he talking to anyone suspicious? I mean, even a simple Google search could be a clue.
Speaking of clues, what about the explosives themselves? Military-grade fireworks. That's not something you just find lying around.
Exactly. Figuring out where those explosives came from is really important. Were they stolen, bought illegally? Knowing the source could lead to accomplices, or at least give us more information about who Lebelsberger was connected to.
And the Cybertruck, did the FBI find anything important when they examined the wreckage?
Reports say that the FBI's forensic team went over every inch of the truck. They were looking for anything, evidence, DNA, fingerprints, literally anything that could help explain what happened before the explosion. And they'll be looking at the truck's data logs, too. Those might have information about how fast it was going, its location, even if he braked hard in those last few moments.
It's amazing how much information they can get from what looks like just a pile of debris.
Right.
It reminds me of those crime shows where they zoom in on a tiny piece of fabric and suddenly they know who did it.
Well, it's not always that simple, but you're right. Forensic science has come a long way. Even the smallest details can be huge breakthroughs in a case like this.
So all this forensic work, the digital investigation, tracking the explosives, it sounds like a massive job.
It is, and it's all happening while the media is watching closely.
Yeah.
This case has caught everyone's attention. It's got everything a blockbuster movie would have: mystery, suspense, high stakes.
Plus, don't forget the political side. This happened at a Trump property just weeks before he was going to be president. That adds a whole other level of complexity and attention.
Oh, yeah. The political climate back then was incredibly tense. This explosion wasn't just a news story. It became a symbol. People were talking about it. It brought up all these anxieties and divisions people had.
I remember the media wouldn't stop talking about it. Everyone had an opinion, a theory, a hot take.
Social media was full of speculation.
Yeah.
It showed how one event could be seen in so many different ways depending on, your perspective and what you already believed. Some people thought it was an attack on Trump. Others thought it was terrorism. And some saw it as a sign of, social unrest. The truth, as we're starting to see, is probably a lot more complicated than any of those initial reactions.
It reminds us that sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that don't fit into neat categories. And I think as we keep looking into this case, we're going to find a lot more of those gray areas. What are your thoughts so far? What details have stood out to you? What questions are you still thinking about?
Maybe you're wondering why the FBI is being so secretive about some parts of this investigation. They've been really quiet about certain things. Or maybe you're thinking about Elon Musk and whether he knew more than he said at first.
There are so many paths to follow, so many potential connections, and as we've seen, each answer just seems to lead to more questions. But stay with us, because in the last part of our deep dive, we're going to reveal something that'll completely change how we understand this whole case. All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've been piecing together this Cybertruck explosion, and like we mentioned, there's a twist that changes, pretty much everything.
Remember how the FBI has been super secretive about parts of this investigation?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
When they dug deeper into both the Las Vegas and the New Orleans cases, they found something really shocking.
Okay, I gotta know. What did they find?
They found out that Matthew Levelsberger, the guy driving the cybertruck, was actually working with the FBI.
Wait, seriously, so the guy we thought might be involved in the New Orleans attack was actually trying to stop terrorism?
Yeah, that's what it looks like right now.
Yeah.
Apparently, he had gotten into a group they suspected of planning attacks, maybe even one in New Orleans. He was giving the FBI information, trying to stop them.
So that changes everything. But now there are even more questions. If he was working with the FBI, why was he driving a truck full of explosives towards the Trump Hotel? Was he, trying to intercept them? Was this a sting operation that went wrong?
That's what the FBI is trying to figure out. It seems like they think Levelsberger was moving those explosives to get evidence against this suspected terrorist group, and then something went bad, it exploded too early, and, well, he died.
It's so sad that someone who was trying to protect others ended up dying in such a horrible way. It really makes you think about the risks these people take and how complicated these undercover operations are.
It definitely shows the tough position the FBI is in. They want to stop attacks before they happen, but sometimes that means putting people like Levelsberger in really dangerous situations.
And did anyone even think about the risks in this specific operation? Were there any safety measures? Or was he basically walking into a really dangerous situation with no backup?
Those are questions people will be asking for a long time. And even though the FBI has admitted that Levelsberger was working with them, they're still being really careful about giving out specific details, saying it's a matter of national security. We might never know exactly what happened that day.
So we see Matthew Levelsberger in a whole new light now. But the mystery of what he was doing in those final hours and why he was going to the Trump Hotel is still there. We know what happened, but the how and the why are still hidden.
And this is where we have to admit that we don't know everything. We can look at the information we have, guess about the motives, and try to connect the dots, but in the end, some things might stay secret for national security, or maybe the answers were just lost in all the chaos of that explosion.
What about Elon Musk? We know he gave the FBI surveillance footage and helped them unlock the cybertruck. Do you think he knew that Levelsberger was working with the FBI?
That's a good question. Was Tesla involved in this operation somehow? Did Musk help with the sting operation on purpose? Or was he, like he said, just a CEO cooperating with the police?
Hard to say without more information. Maybe as the investigation goes on, we'll learn more. But for now, we're left with this story full of twists and turns and questions without answers. It started as a story about a possible terrorist attack, but now we're thinking about the sacrifices made by the people who work secretly to prevent those attacks. It's a reminder of how complicated the world is and the hard choices people have to make.
And it leaves us with a final question. In a world where information is often controlled or changed or just incomplete, how do we form our own opinions and make sense of things that are hard to understand?
It's something we all have to figure out. But maybe the most important thing is to be critical thinkers, to question what we believe, and to be open to the idea that there's always more to the story than we see at first.